I did my presentation over the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party was led by Samuel Adams, Paul Revere, and others. It was a nonviolent political protest by the Sons of Liberty that was on December 16, 1773 in Boston. The Americans were being taxed for the tea without their authorization, and due to that, the colonists disguised themselves as Indians and dumped all the tea from the 3 ships around midnight into the Boston harbor sent from the East India Company. The 2 acts that led up to the Boston Tea Party was the Townshend Acts and the Tea Act. The Townshend Revenue Act taxed tea, glass, lead, oil, paint, and paper. Due to boycotts and protests, the Townshend Revenue Act's taxes were repealed on all commodities except tea in 1770. The tea tax was kept in order to maintain Parliament's right to tax the colonies. The Tea Act is what started all of this. It was a bill enacted by the British Parliament to save the faltering British East India Company by greatly lowering its tea tax and granting it a virtual monopoly on the American tea trade. The low tax allowed the company to sell its tea even more cheaply than smuggling it into America by Dutch traders. Many colonists viewed the act as yet another example of Britain's taxation tyranny. The act wasn't supposed to anger the citizens. It was only meant to get the British East India Company out of debt from the 7 Years' War. Prior to the Tea Act, the British East India Company tea was required to exclusively sell its tea at auction in London. This required the British East India Company to pay a tax per pound of tea sold, which added to the company's financial burdens. The Tea Act aborted this restriction and granted the British East India Company license to export their tea to American colonies. This opened up the British East India Company's markets to the American colonies. Additionally, under the Tea Act, once the tea got shipped, it was sold for a reduced rate. The colonists refused to pay the tax, though. The colonists initially in Philadelphia and New York refused the British East India Company tea to be offloaded and sent the ships back to England. In many colonial ports, to protest the Tea Act, the shipment of tea was unloaded and left untouched on the docks to rot. The Beaver, Dartmouth, and Eleanor arrived in Boston in late November to the middle of December of 1773. The colonists, led by the Sons of Liberty, wanted the ships to return to England and refused the unloading of the ship's cargo of tea. Lieutenant Governor and Chief Justice of Massachusetts, Thomas Hutchinson, refused to let the ships return to England and held the ships in Boston Harbor until the matters could be resolved and the tea offloaded. This is where the plans for the Boston Tea Party was set. And here's a video on history.com if you want to find more information on the Boston Tea Party. Also, did you know that it took nearly 3 hours for more than 100 colonists to empty the tea into the Boston Harbor? The chests held more than 90,000 pounds of tea, which would cost nearly $1 million today, but $18,000 then. And that's it.